Have you ever thought about what it's like to be born in a country that swims in oil, yet dies of thirst in the desert? There are no rivers, no lakes, and rain only shows up once in a blue moon, like a visit from a distant relative you don't even like. And still, these individuals had the audacity to construct the world's largest underground river. It sounds like science fiction, but this is Saudi Arabia, the place where even water has to be manufactured, or rather, stolen from the sea. And while you might pride yourself on conserving water by turning off the tap while brushing your teeth, perhaps even letting your armpit get smelly in the heat to save a few precious drops, the Saudis, on the other hand, are busily pumping millions of gallons of water from beneath the desert sand, just like magic. But hold on, the price of this magic is much higher than you can imagine. 1. Where is Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia occupies almost the entire Arabian Peninsula, in the heart of the Middle East. To the north, it borders Jordan and Iraq. To the east, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE. To the south, Oman and Yemen. And to the west, by the Red Sea. And on the other side, it also has access to the sea via the Persian Gulf. In summary, it's a nation surrounded by desert on land, yet enveloped by salt water on every side. The territory is gigantic, spanning 2.1 million square kilometers, which makes Saudi Arabia the fifth largest country in Asia and the biggest in the Middle East. Just for comparison, it's almost 4 times the size of France and more than 3 times the size of the state of Texas in the United States. Yet, despite its vast area, the population numbers only 36 million, primarily located in a handful of modern cities. And here's where it gets interesting. Despite having no permanent rivers, Saudi Arabia stands as the largest economy in the Arab world, primarily sustained by its oil reserves. Its capital, Riyadh, is in the desert, far from the sea. Meanwhile, Mecca and Medina attract millions of people every year, serving as the spiritual heart of Islam. Another impressive detail to consider is that over 80% of its land area consists of desert. Temperatures can exceed 50 degrees Celsius in the summer, and annual rainfall barely reaches 100 millimeters in many regions. This makes Saudi Arabia one of the driest countries on the planet. And it's precisely in this extreme scenario that they had to come up with impossible solutions to get water. 2. The Dry Kingdom. Saudi Arabia is incredibly rich. It has gushing oil, skyscrapers in the middle of the desert, and luxury cars parading around like beetles. But there's one detail nobody remembers. All of this was built in a country with practically no water. 0 rivers, 0 lakes, no natural fresh water, just sand, sun, and oven-like heat. To grasp the absurdity, São Paulo gets over 1,400 millimeters of rain yearly, London almost 600 millimeters. Now, in Saudi Arabia, it barely reaches 100. It's so little that if you put a bucket out on the street by the end of the year, it would be drier than a hangover throat. And that's exactly where the contradiction lies. While almost the entire planet was born and raised around rivers and lakes, the Saudis had to invent life in the middle of nowhere. They build gigantic cities in one of the driest places on Earth. And the million-dollar question is, how does a country with over 36 million people manage to have water every single day without a single natural river? 3. The miraculous dams. When we talk about dams, we immediately think of a huge river being held back. But here's the thing. In Saudi Arabia, there are no rivers. So how did they do it? The answer sounds like a joke. They started saving even the rare rains that fall in the desert. Since 2021, they've already constructed over 520 dams spread throughout the entire country. Not to hold back a river, because there aren't any. They collect rainwater, and from the flash floods that appear in the wadis, those dry riverbeds that once in a blue moon turn into a stream for a few hours after a random storm. And just look at the scale of this. The total capacity of these dams exceeds 650 billion gallons of water. To compare, you could fill millions of Olympic swimming pools in the middle of the desert, just without the cheering crowds. An absurd example is the Kali Dam, in the Mecca region, which alone holds almost 250 million cubic meters. In the Mecca province, there are already 60 dams, with a storage capacity of 232 billion gallons. And why all this effort? Simple. If they just let the water run free, it would evaporate in a matter of hours. After all, temperatures there easily pass 50 degrees Celsius. In other words, in the desert, every drop is treated like liquid gold. 4. Fossil water. Now, here comes the craziest part. Saudi Arabia's primary water source isn't from rivers, lakes, or waterfalls, as none exist there. It's concealed beneath the desert. Geologists estimate over 26 trillion gallons are there. Seems endless, right? Almost like an infinite pool. But hold on, it's not quite like that. Only a tiny fraction of it is renewable. About 739 billion gallons a year. The rest is fossil water. Yes, fossil. This is water that became trapped when the Arabian Peninsula was green, abundant with rivers, lush plants, and ample rain, when the desert was truly a garden, not this scorching furnace of today. To put it simply, it's like inheriting a fortune from your great-grandparents, but with no salary coming in. You can spend it, but you can never replace it. And the Saudis are enthusiastically spending these liquid savings, irrigating farms in the sand, supplying futuristic cities, and even maintaining desert golf courses. So that leaves the question, when these savings run dry, what will they do? Because unlike rain, this ancient water is never coming back. 5. Excessive consumption. If you think this rare and precious water is only used for drinking and cooking, you're mistaken. Saudi Arabia actually consumes much more than it can naturally replenish, and it's not just on the essential things. A large portion of it goes to irrigating crops in the middle of the desert, to maintaining green parks that seem completely out of place in the 50 degrees Celsius heat, and even to washing luxury cars. To give you an idea of the absurdity, nearly 70% of the country's water goes to agriculture. But don't imagine a small backyard garden. These are colossal farms attempting to cultivate wheat and fodder in soil that was never intended for such a purpose. It's like trying to grow rice in the middle of the Sahara, expensive, difficult, and ultimately unsustainable. And the contradiction continues. While people in various countries are accustomed to conserving every single drop, in Saudi Arabia, water is consumed as if it were limitless. Yet, it is not. Consumption already far exceeds what renewable reserves can provide. That's where the uncomfortable question comes in. How long can the country fund this lifestyle, using water as if there's plenty, when it's really depleting its own underground reserves? Hey, do me a favor, send this video to that family member who always leaves the toilet full of, to save water, and also for the one who doesn't even shower. This country would be their paradise, wouldn't it? And if you want to give some extra support to the channel, send a thanks. That way I don't have to send my editors to work in the desert. Hey, give a shout out, editor. 6. The invisible river. With no rivers, no lakes, no fresh water at all, Saudi Arabia had to think big. And when I say big, I mean seriously megalomaniac level. Since nature didn't bless them with rivers, they resolved to construct their own, but underground. What was the outcome? A pipeline system over 14,000 kilometers long, longer than the Nile River itself, the largest natural river on the planet. But here's the catch. You can't see a thing. It's a ghost river, flowing concealed beneath the sand. And why bury it? The reason is simple. If the water were on the surface, it would evaporate in a matter of hours, because the desert is basically an oven turned up to maximum. Buried beneath the surface, they shield it from the sun, maintain optimal pressure, and transport water across vast distances with minimal waste. It's like they've created an artificial vein that pumps blood, or rather water, to cities in the middle of nowhere. A project so huge it seems like a scene from science fiction, but in reality, it's purely a matter of survival. 7. Engineering in an inferno. Building this underground river was no simple task. Saudi Arabia faced conditions that looked like they were taken straight from a survival film. To begin, The pipelines had to traverse granite and limestone mountains, rocks so incredibly hard it seemed as if nature had placed them there purely out of spite. The solution? Explosives and gigantic drilling machines blasted through, as if straight out of an action movie. And if it wasn't the hard rock, it was the scorching desert. In the heart of Arabia, the thermometer easily hits 50 degrees Celsius. Working during the day? Forget it. Workers only managed to cope in the early mornings like engineering vampires. And then there were sandstorms disrupting the work and even flash floods out of nowhere because the desert loves to mess with logic. The pipelines, some exceeding 2 meters in width, necessitated burial with utmost surgical precision, as any slight misstep risked causing a monumental leak amidst the dunes that move and change location as if they possess an independent will. In the end, the most impressive part is this: the artificial river was made invisible on purpose. It wasn't made to be pretty, Instagrammable, or a postcard picture. It was made to survive the heat, the sand, and time. A true engineering marvel, constructed in an inferno. Number 8. Turning seawater into fresh water. But even with all that effort, the underground river alone was not enough. That's when the Saudis turned to something that seems like magic: transforming salty ocean water into fresh water, the famous process of desalination. Today, Saudi Arabia is the largest global producer in this process. To give you an idea, the Ras Al Khair plant cost over $7 billion and made it into the Guinness Book as the largest on the planet. This single plant alone generates nearly 800 million gallons of fresh water daily, sufficient to cater to millions of individuals and various industries. But its capabilities extend even further. By 2024, the nation already possessed 43 desalination plants spread along its coastline, drawing water from both the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. However, this solution comes with its own set of challenges. Desalinating water is indeed costly. It can be up to 10 times more expensive than using natural sources. Furthermore, it consumes massive amounts of energy, which predominantly comes from fossil fuels. And then there's the issue of brine disposal, that highly concentrated salty waste. If it's carelessly discharged into the ocean, it can devastate entire ecosystems. In other words, desalination works like an unlimited credit card. It solves everything now. It feels like an easy pass, but when the bill finally arrives, it'll be as salty as the very water they are attempting to drink. Number 9. A dangerous dependency. Desalination has made Saudi Arabia a global leader. Pretty impressive for their resume, isn't it? But it also brought a dependency that's actually scary. Currently, many of the nation's biggest cities would simply not be able to survive without these facilities. It's as if every faucet is connected to a machine that can never stop. And that's where the nightmare begins. What would happen if for some reason these power plants were to fail? If the power went out, if a technical problem stopped the process, entire cities like Riyadh, Jeddah, or Mecca would run out of drinking water in a matter of days. Imagine millions of people unable to even fill a glass of water. And to make matters worse, there's the bill. Desalination costs 3 to 10 times more than using normal sources, and the process consumes a ridiculous amount of energy, almost all of it from oil. Saudi Arabia exchanged one dependency for another, like trading cigarettes for a hookah. The form changes, but the addiction remains. Before, the addiction was to the fossil water underground. Now, it's to extremely expensive oil-powered plants, and that oil will also run out one day. The real question then becomes, is this truly water security or merely an illusion that endures only while the oil fund remains full? 10. Green in the desert. Amidst so many challenges, Saudi Arabia has decided to bet on something that seems almost utopian: turning the desert into green areas. The plan is to plant at least 10 billion trees and safeguard approximately 30% of their national territory from desertification. It may appear to be an exaggeration, but it is not just about appearances. The core idea is to establish a natural barrier against the desert's advance, improve the soil's fertility, and even strengthen food security. And the numbers are truly impressive. It's estimated that reforestation could reduce up to 20% of pollutant particles in the air in some regions and lower the average temperature in cities by almost 4 degrees Celsius. It might not seem like much, but when the thermometer hits 50 degrees Celsius, that difference can be the line between enduring the heat and passing out in the middle of the street. Cities like Riyadh and the futuristic megaproject of Neom are already incorporating green spaces into their architecture. The core concept is straightforward. More trees mean greater shade, cleaner air, and a less oppressive urban existence surrounded by concrete and asphalt. Naturally, planting 10 billion trees isn't an overnight task, but the initiative is already demonstrating significant advancement. And let's face it, seeing Saudi Arabia, a global symbol of the desert, trying to reinvent itself as a greenland is one of the greatest ironies of our time. 11. The future, miracle, or illusion. These days, many people claim that water has become the new oil. And if there's one country that understands this better than anyone, it's Saudi Arabia. They've already become wealthy by selling energy globally, and now they are spending vast sums to ensure their population can continue to reside in one of the planet's most arid regions. To give you an idea, more than 70% of the real cost of desalinated water is paid by the government. If that subsidy were to vanish tomorrow, many households simply wouldn't be able to pay their water bills. It's truly too expensive, and this issue isn't exclusive to Saudi Arabia. The Middle East is home to 12 of the 17 countries most threatened by water scarcity in the world. Israel only survives thanks to desalination. The United Arab Emirates is even trying to fabricate artificial clouds to make it rain. Jordan imports water from neighboring countries. In other words, Saudi Arabia isn't alone in this. It has become a kind of survival laboratory in the desert. The government talks a big game with its Vision 2030 project, promising modernity, green technology, and even reforestation. But the contradiction is clear. They continue to be the biggest oil exporter on the planet while trying to portray themselves as a sustainable nation. So, what is this all about? A miracle that shows how technology can conquer nature? Or just a very expensive bubble sustained by oil that sooner or later is going to burst? Because in the end, the question that remains is simple. If oil made Saudi Arabia rich, could the lack of water make it go broke? So what's it going to be? A miracle or a mirage? If you've made it this far and you're a loyal subscriber, comment Saudi Arabia below, so I know you're part of the crew that sticks around till the end. And if you enjoy keeping up with real facts and genuine experiences, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the video that's appearing on your screen right now. It's truly excellent. Cheers, guys. Until next time.